Good afternoon all. Can anyone confirm is the screen what I have shared is visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for the confirmation. We will start our discussion. So first thing first, in the last class, few of you had doubt. One is related to this particular equation of determining the constant, material constant in case of Newberg's rule or the Peterson's rule. Newberg's rule, it is depending on the microstructure, and obtaining this constant is quite difficult empirically. So here if you look into the data handbook, whatever equation is given here, that A is you have to consider for the Peterson's, not for the Newberg approach. Okay. Remember that. Okay. So here what you have, this equation you have to consider for Peterson's approach, because in Peterson's approach this material constant A is defined with respect to material strength and ductility parameters. So from there this A is defined, whereas in case of Newberg's, the rho symbol, or sometimes people will write A, symbol do not matter, depending on the equation, the meaning of that symbol. So in case of Newberg approach, the symbol A is indicate A or rho. Usually you find rho, but in some data books you might find as A. But there it is a parameter related to the material, but defined with respect to material microstructure and strength aspect. Where in case of Peterson's approach, it is strength or the ductility aspect is taken in order to arrive at this particular equation, which I have highlighted here. Okay. So this equation you can take if it is a Peterson's approach. This discussion we already had. Just for one more time clarification, I am explaining about this. Okay. And here you must see that the value of the ultimate strength you have to substitute in KSI, not in the form of MPa. Please remember. Okay. Do not insert the ultimate strength given in KSI into this equation. In the present problem solution what we have provided, there this equation is written for MPa format. Please look into this equation here. For I have to go to presenter mode. Okay. So the equation for material constant here is in the form of MPa. So in this equation, this ultimate strength you have to substitute as 500 MPa, because that is given data as it is. But if you use the equation from the data handbook, A is equal to 0.001, and then it is 300 divided by SU. So this SU you have to substitute in KSI unit, whole to the power 1.8 KSI unit. So to convert from MPa to KSI, how much you can do it? 500 divided by 6.909. This is the conversion factor, 6.909. So this you can apply and convert MPa to KSI units, and that value you can substitute here. You will get some answer. So can someone calculate how much you will get? A value, point some factor you will get, no? Ayush, last class you asked this, no? You have the solution there?
0.0129.
0.0129 some factor you will get. Now your question was last time, A answer is different, correct, no? Here it is 0.3276, here it is 0.0129. So this answer will differ. A cannot be same in either case. You cannot interchange just because you are converted. This answer will differ because this is a parameter you are going to insert at this location, A. So that R, notch root, that radius, that you have to substitute accordingly. So for the given value, Q is 1 plus A by R. If you substitute A 0.129, then notch root radius R, what is given in 3 mm, here it is 3 mm. So for MPa related value, what you get A, you are substituting as it is, and you are going to put 3 mm. But here if you put, you convert that 3 mm to inch. You know that 1 inch is 25.4 mm. 25.4 mm, 1 inch. So then it is how much for 3 mm. So you can make use of this relationship, convert that 3 mm into inches. So here you have to put that notch root radius in inches. Then you are going to find the same answer what you have got earlier, 0.901 something you have to get. Here also you will get the same. So it do not affect the notch sensitivity factor Q if you substitute in inches or KSI irrespective of the equation. But equations you cannot interchange. Okay, this you have to remember. Is that address your query? Ayush?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. And this equation is correct. What equation is provided here correct? I have verified it. Very
Yes.
difficult to get equations in MPA as far as fatigue is concerned, because most of the data what we use in our fatigue related calculations comes from US based data source, and they use the inch and other system. Standard SI units is not used there. Therefore, very difficult to get equations in the SI unit format, but still we have, okay, at several places we have. So this equation is correct. This is not given in the data handbook because in data handbook most of the equations are given with KSI. So you can remember this, or you can use the equation available in the data handbook, but remember to substitute the values in corresponding units. Final answer would be same. There is no difficulty or difference in obtaining the final answer. Here KT is given in the present problem, theoretical stress concentration factor, or from using your MD1 knowledge, you can determine what is the stress concentration factor for a given shape. That is same what you did with your MD1. You have used their various shafts with the certain fillets, radius and the shaft diameter. So same process you apply and do it. I will not waste time on explaining that. Here on fatigue data handbook, we have not given such charts, but hope that from your MD1 you are aware to obtain that. Okay. So this is about this factor. The second was many people had doubt over here. Anybody made an effort to listen to the lecture again as I suggested, because that would have solved your query. I think maybe here some while writing some mistake is there, only value. Okay. What is this RLV? These are the reactions. You have a simply supported beam with central loading. Central load given here is 5000 Newton. Okay. So end left and right LR you can write. So reaction, vertical reaction, you will get here value of 2142, and other side you are going to get for the given problem it is 2857, because distance is different now. Here distance given is how much? 300 plus 100. So you have 400 from one side and another side it is 300. So given distances are, this is 400 altogether, this is 300. Okay. Breakup for the cross section is, that is anyways here, it is there, no problem. 300, 100, 100 and 200. Okay. So if you calculate the reactions using your strength of metal equation, you will get these values. Okay. Now you have to take the bending moment at 3 different locations. If at all, for example, if at all you have a standard cross section with the central loading, A is equal to B. Okay, A, B, both same. If A is equal to B with central loading, then how the shear force diagram you are going to have? Positive shear force and then negative shear force diagram. This is shear force diagram you are going to draw, and bending moment diagram. Bending moment is maximum where there is shear force is changing sign or it is 0. Okay. This is the maximum location of maximum bending moment. This is for the standard case. For a given problem, how bending moment will vary? For this given problem, the trend remains same. Bending moment is going to vary maximum at the center, and as it goes towards the supports, bending moment decreases. It is a point load, therefore it is a linear varying line, not curve. If it was UDL, you have first order, second order curve. If it is UVL, you have third order curve. So these discussions you know from your strength of material background. So what you know is maximum bending moment will be at the center. Center means where there is load is applied in this case. If it is load is applied some other location, then at that location you will get the maximum bending moment. Strength of material you can recall. Okay. Therefore, it is evident you have to mandatorily consider one cross section from the given geometry. One cross section you must consider at the center because there is a maximum bending moment. Maybe I'll change color to okay. Maximum bending moment location, you must consider one cross section. Let us name that cross section CC, some cross section CC. So you have to determine bending moment about section CC. What is the definition of bending moment? Recall from the strength of material, bending moment, not moment. Moment is load into distance, but bending moment definition is different. You have definition for force. Similarly, you have definition for shear force in SOM. Same way you have definition for moment and you have clear-cut definition for bending moment. Strength of material. Okay. So there you are going to divide the given geometry into multiple sections. Anywhere you can take a cross section. It is said to be the summation of all the moments, either towards the left or towards the right of the cross section under consideration. You have cross section XX. Here also you can take what is the corresponding bending moment from one end. This is end A. You can name another end B. Okay. From the considered cross section, the summation of all the moments either acting in the right or acting in the left of the cross section, any one. You please revisit the SOM lecture. During your batch, I was the SOM coordinator. I think D section student who are here, I have only handled class. And Ayush used to come to me from A section. I think you have to revisit. I cannot explain all the concept of SOM here. That is we hope you must aware from your lower semester. But if you have forgot, I'll just highlight the main concepts. So bending moment is nothing but summation of all the moments either acting towards the left or acting towards the right from the cross section under consideration. And what is the sign convention for bending moment? It is not clockwise and anti-clockwise. Clockwise and anti-clockwise is not the sign convention for bending moment. Clockwise, anti-clockwise is sign convention for moment. You used to take clockwise positive, anti-clockwise negative. This is basic mechanics. Basic mechanics. Bending moment, we used to say hogging and sagging. Depending on hogging and sagging, whether the beam is hogging or sagging in the portion of interest, you have to consider positive or negative. Please recall these concepts. And like that, here different cross sections are there. Anywhere we can take a cross section, but minimum cross sections, where to consider minimum? We have to consider where there is a change in geometry. One is at the center because this is a simply supported beam. Center in the sense where there is a point load. Okay, where there is a point load. If it is a equal distance either side of the support, it is at the center. If not, some distance A and B. Okay, you have a beam, load is acting somewhere here, where distance A is larger and distance B is smaller. A is not equal to B. In this case, you have to consider one cross section at that location. So present problem is that way, where there is a load applied that location you have to consider a cross section, because there you are going to find maximum bending moment. Maximum bending moment. Apart from that, where there is a change in geometry, at that location you have to consider a cross section. Okay, you have to consider in the smaller dimension cross section. Here representation wise it is shown either way. Okay, because we say this distance is infinitesimally small. Okay, so no need to make average of the diameter of between the both, etc. As far as possible, you go to the smallest size. So we consider a cross section where diameter is 30. You have some bending moment here. If you calculate the bending moment, this is the bending moment magnitude. Bending moment magnitude. Let us name that section as AA. Bending moment magnitude at that location. Okay, but real bending moment at this location will be some value greater than this, if you are going to consider the concentration of the moment, or you assume bending moment to be same in stress equation. This is a bending case. Sigma is m by I into y. Okay, so if you are considering the cross section at the largest diameter or at the location of the load applied, there is no stress concentration. So whatever the bending moment you have at that location, section CC, moment of inertia and y, same. But if you consider the stress now at a location of cross section AA, cross section AA, that is transition zone between diameter 30 to diameter 45, transition zone where there is a stress concentration. So that is cross section stress at section AA, KT, or if it is a fatigue, KF times moment at that particular location, MAA I into Y. You have to write this. And then one more cross section you have to consider in the transition zone. The meaning is in the transition zone. Okay, and we will assume that smallest possible size of the transition zone, that is 35. In the rightmost side you have one more change of cross section. Transition zone, we have to consider the section. So let us name that section B, maybe BB, section BB. And if you write the corresponding stress equation, sigma BB, now KF times at that particular section, KF at that particular location. Okay, KF at that particular location, M moment at that particular location, I into Y. Now these three stresses you have to compare before putting in the fatigue life analysis. Just because moment is maximum at the position of where there is load is applied. See, this is max, M max. At the center there is maximum moment, but just because it is maximum moment location, I cannot say that stress at this location is going to be large. Stress at this location is going to be large. Sigma CC, there is no guarantee that sigma CC will be more, because another two places where there is change in geometry is there, transition zone is there, smaller to larger diameter cross section change is there. At that location there is stress concentration factor. So you will get there a stress which is multiplied by that stress concentration times. Okay, without stress concentration, the stress at that location is not more than what you get at the load application point, because you can observe here MAA and the moment at one more location BB, this MBB, are both less than M max. M max is equal to MCC, moment, bending moment at that particular location where you have the direct axial load, which is greater than MAA and also greater than MBB. Is this much is clear? What I have written here, the maximum moment what you find for the given shaft is more than bending moment at any other location? Anyone have any query to ask? If this is clear, this idea is clear. This is MD1, nothing much, same to the MD1. We are only estimating the bending stress, that is it. Instead of taking theoretical stress concentration KT, we are taking fatigue stress concentration KF. Apart from that, this much is nothing but your static design, MD1. We have not yet applied any fatigue related equation. We are only calculating what is the maximum bending moment, which is the strength of material, and we are calculating the bending moment at other locations of interest. Now in the present case, the other location of interest is where there is a transition zone. Okay. And then we know that where there is a transition zone, there is a stress riser, stress concentration, or notch effect. Notch effect is a theoretical term to say. Practically, it is any location where you find rise in the stress. Okay. So that value we are going to multiply to get the actual stress developed at that location. Now you have to compare which is more, whether stress developed at the location where you apply the load at that location is more, or whether the stress applied at a location where there is a transition from lowest diameter, that is 30 to 45 is happening, or whether the transition at a location where the diametral change 35 to 45 is happening. You cannot straightforward say this. Just you go and consider smallest diameter. No, that is not possible to say. Okay. For that reason, I will give you one more problem. You practice by your own. You will understand and compare with this problem. Okay. So identify the stresses at all location and then compare which is more. Where you get the higher value of stress, that is a location where you are observing the failure, and that location stress you have to use in the fatigue equation. So that is what is done in the problem. So last class I have shown here. This only thing is the value may not be correct. Section BB, it is this should be section CC. Okay. Section CC. This is section BB. That is it. Bending moment is calculated from right side. That is, or similar thing I can even write here. If I calculate considering left side, we have this reaction force 2148, which is going to hog the beam. Therefore, it is positive. Multiply by sagging or hogging, any one you consider positive, it is left to you, but maintain the conventional things. So 100, 100 and 300, total 500. This much minus one more load is there, that is 5000 Newton acting at the center, that means distance of 100. So either way, both equation will give you the same answer. That is the definition of bending moment. Summation of all the moments acting either in the right side or in the left side from the cross section under consideration. So I have written here two equations. Once by considering the moment acting in the right side, once by considering the moment acting in the left side. Whichever equation you want, you consider. It do not matter. Even for the other two cases, you can do so, left to you. Whichever is simpler, that is written earlier. Okay. Only thing is, while writing the cross section name here, some mistake. Just writing the name. Calculation is correct. So MCC and MBB, this you have to change. If you have copied the same thing, whatever is given. So 300, 400. This is nothing but taking the bending moment at that particular location. How much value you get? Someone here? Anyone calculated? Value?
So for MAA, you get 64,200. Sorry, 642857.
6?
642857. Point
642,857. Okay. Then this unit you have to write, it is Newton mm. Newton mm. Unit is mandatory. Unit Newton mm. Similarly, other one MCC.
857.
857.
142.8.
And
142.
14.
142. Yes, sir.
142.8. Okay. Newton
millimeter.
mm. Last case.
571428.
571428 Newton mm. Okay. Now taking this, you calculate this stress value, tension or compression, any one, because the component is symmetric and it is undergoing alternate tension compression. Load is constant, so magnitude of tension and compression values will be same. We consider tensile stress because component is expected to fail under tensile. Bending load means it is axial load. Tension and compressions are there, alternate about the neutral axis. So substitute these m into this bending equation, find out three stress values. So I say SAA, SCC, that is stress at that location, and SPB. Now when calculating this, we have to multiply with KF, fatigue stress concentration factor. At location CC, there is no stress concentration because it is uniform area, 45 diameter. At location section AA and section BB, you have the stress concentration factor. So you can write the corresponding stress concentration factor. KF times whatever value you will get. So MAA, that value you have to write, that is 642757, 6428, no? This is MAA divided by corresponding moment of area. It is a circular cross section, pi d4 by 64. That is the moment of inertia or second moment of area formula. So section AA, you have to consider the lowest diameter, that is 30 to the power 4 divided by 64. And here it is distance y, d by 2. So that is nothing but 30 by 2. Okay. So you will get some value. That all value you have to multiply by KF. Remember to multiply stress concentration time. At section CC, you have bending moment, maximum bending moment out of all 84857142 divided by similar formula, you just write it, that is pi into 45 to the power 4 by 64 and 45 by 2. Okay, pi 45 to the power 4 by 64 and 45 by 2. Similarly, at last cross section MBB 571428 divided by pi, area there is diameter is 35 power 4 by 64 multiply by 35 divided by 2, you will get three stress values. Okay, three stress values. You calculate these three stress values at three different locations. Where you get highest stress, that is the location of failure. The component is going to fail at that location, and then for that stress you calculate the life, not for any of the stress. Okay, so after doing this only you will come to know which is the location where you are finding the highest stress. Just because load is applied, you cannot take the location of load applied. Or if you see bending moment, you compare the three bending moments. You can find at middle section, section CC, bending moment is maximum. You observe maximum bending moment value. Okay. But when you multiply KF, fatigue stress concentration factor, to the existing load, you are going to find that actual moment at some other location is greater than MCC. That location is the stress prone now. So you calculate. Anyone got the answer for SAA?
Sir, SAA, I'm getting the maximum of 390.94 MPa.
390.94
MPa.
MPa. Okay. Then SCC?
95.811 MPa.
95.811 MPa. Then last one?
218.838 MPa.
218.838
MPa.
838.
838.
Okay. Okay, this much MPa. Fine. Okay. Now you can see at the location of section AA, there is highest stress. This we will take and use in the Baskin equation to determine the life. This is the maximum stress component is experiencing. This we have to take. Okay. So I'll this I think remaining thing you can do it. So I think here also some mistake is there while writing. Okay. Answer also not correct. Answer you can calculate and write what you are getting. This has to be multiplied by KF. Okay. And here also it is KF. So anyways, I have explained. I will not write again. Just mark. Okay. Remaining thing you can see. Here it is 45. Here it is 35. Okay. Remaining is fine. Okay. So corresponding answer, what I have written here, this is the right answers you are supposed to get. So that you have got it. Then that you substitute in the Baskin equation. So not this. What is the value you have got here? 390.9. So you have to write 390.9. Okay. So that will give you the corresponding life. That is the answer. Okay. So this is about the given problem. I will erase here. Okay. Just we can only changing the length parameter, keeping all the dimensions same. I can alter this problem. All geometry, everything becomes same. But just if I vary the length, the entire problem answer will be different. Then you will realize why to calculate stresses at the different location. Okay. This same problem, same geometry, I will change now. I will give you a new problem with the same. You can practice by your own. Any problem, we can make n number of problems there. Okay. All geometry, everything is same. Consider the notch. Apart from length, remaining thing I will keep it same. Okay. You can draw this problem and you can try to solve by your own. Okay. Let us say this shaft is fixed in a bearing. This is a shaft fixed in a bearing. Same problem, given problem. Similar, all data same. Only length I will vary just to give you the significance of calculating that different stresses. Okay. This notch root radius was known to be 3 R3. Given data, take the same diameter in the largest zone as 545. One more side, you can take 535. Here you may take 530. Okay. Length I will vary now. Let us take this as 200. Okay. Let us take this particular length, maybe 800 or 1000. Larger is better. Clear difference you will find. Okay. Maybe I'll consider the length as 1000 and remaining also you may assume as 200. Okay. And load is acting at the center. Load is acting at the center, same magnitude, 5000 Newton. You consider the same magnitude. Previous problem, there was little difference. Load was not exactly at the center. That is okay, that doesn't matter. So the same problem with the same statement, what is given, you have taken down this statement. All values you take same, apart from the length L. And now you find the stresses at different cross section location. What you find, you verify that and you give me your answer in the next class about that. Okay, you are only going to realize the importance. So consider one cross section here. So ideally speaking, it is the transition zone. While representing, we may represent anywhere. So consider a cross section AA in the transition zone, meaning is in the transition zone between diameter 30 to 45, where there is some stress concentration. You have some KT and that means you have some KF. You have to calculate Q. Theoretical stress concentration factor KT, same way by the understanding of machine drawing, machine design. Theoretical stress concentration factor KT you will get, and then notch sensitivity factor Q. From that equation you will get KF. As we have not changed the diameter and the notch root radius, you will get KF same as what you got in the previous problem. Okay, so there is no problem with that. Then consider one more cross section in the transition zone. In the transition zone, and name this as cross section BB, where there is change in diameter between 35 to 45, and one more cross section you have to consider at the location where there is load is applied. So that location you give as section CC. Okay. Now you check, find out the moments MAA, which is nothing but, maybe I'll write this particular end as L and other particular end as M. Okay. So the moment at that particular location, I can write here vertical reaction as RLV, and vertical reaction at end B and M is RMV. Okay. So now just write that RLV into 200. This is what is the moment you get MAA, and MBB. You are going to find another side you can consider easy for easy, or any side. It is left to you, right or left side, whichever you want to consider. RME into 200, you get some value here. Okay, and then MCC. MCC would be RLV into 700. Okay. Then with your KF, if you want the actual moment or actual when you're finding the stresses, the load is magnified by that amount or stress is magnified by that much amount. Okay. So actual, when we make it, it becomes Kf times that particular MA. That is the actual load that cross section is bearing, because smaller area or the notch effect, Kf is that much time increased. Here actual resistance what the cross section is providing, Kf times that. So here there is no Kf for MCC. Okay, so directly we can get it. Now you compare which is more straightforward. You can decide which cross section to consider, not even required to calculate stress. But since we say that Kf is a stress concentration factor, that is why as a procedure we have not written here with the moment. Instead we have written with the stress SAA, Kf times moment at that location, then I into Y. Similarly, SCC is moment at that particular location divided by I into Y, and SBB moment at that particular location I into Y multiplied by the stress concentration factor, fatigue stress concentration factor. Give me a second, some office call. Okay, you take up this problem, you solve by yourself. Now you are going to find the value at SAA much smaller than the value. I hope in this problem you will get maximum stress at CC, at the maximum location only. Now where is your theory? Earlier some people were quoting, we have to consider the smallest diameter. So that is not possible now. You see, for this problem, you calculate and see. Okay. It may not be true always. Therefore, we cannot say that you have to always consider small section. You have to always consider small section when the equal amount of load is there at smaller and the larger section. In this case, it is not so. Bending moment is varying from the support. It is 0 at the support and maximum at the load of location. Okay, and then you have to compare and see whether the notch effect is there, that location is severe, or the maximum load location is severe. This you have to verify and see. Same problem, I can change the length and we can make the another side section BB stress to be maximum. It is just varying with the parameter. So as a designer, you have to locate. You want to control the failure location. You should do that as a designer. You must be aware where to keep the failure location, and you have to plan the failure location such that you can control that in a easiest way. Okay, that is the importance of a designer. Not simply using an equation or some value is there as it is, you take it up. So this problem can be changed in n number of ways. I have only changed the length and showed you. We can change the geometry dimension. We can change the notch root radius. That will alter your stress concentration factor. Okay, so that way we can plan. We can go to sharper notches. We can go to more filleted notches. Various parameters, various aspects. In MD1, various combinations of the geometry is there, various combinations of the notch and other things. Okay, so you can plan in that particular way. Okay, so this is about the previous problem. Anybody is having any query, any doubt, any question? If this is clear, we'll move it to the next. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, so next numerical, that is based on some other idea. We'll look into that theory and then we'll come back here. Okay, fine. Okay, so we have discussed several factors which are going to affect SN diagram or SNP. SNP means stress-like probability diagram. So this we already discussed, stress-like probability diagrams. This you know how much percentage reliability you want to take for. So the shifting of these diagrams, usually standard SN diagram what you find is for median life. This by default you have to assume unless and until it is stated. If it is stated, it is for that particular value. If it is not stated, you have to assume the SN diagram. So whatever SN diagram is by default given without stating any condition, it is for completely reverse bending loading, for highly polished specimen in laboratory condition, and 50 drawn for 50% median life. This is by default statement. So whether it is you are finding out empirically, you are determining this particular point. If it is steel, it is 10 to the power 6. If it is aluminum, it is 10 to the power 8, sometimes 5 into 10 to the power 8 also, highly ductile material. So 10 to the power 6 location, 10 to the power 3 location, what you are going to find out empirically in the absence of data. If you draw, you have SC is equal to 0.5 times of SU, ultimate strength for a steel material for completely reverse bending loading. For bending loading only, we are going for 0.5 SU, and here it is 0.9 SU in the absence of data. Now this curve we have to shift it depending on several factors. So one of that is reliability, and such diagram we say SNP or stress life probability curves. How much probability of survival or how much probability of failure you want to get it. Okay, these things are there in your handouts. You can see. Now the point I want to highlight here is, here as far as possible the maximum points I have put it. Okay, 16 different parameters which affect. How much we have discussed in this? We have discussed about surface condition, okay, geometric discontinuity or stress concentration, we can say, size effect, and front temperature, corrosion. We have assumed in the problems what we have solved to be factor 1. We have not considered corrosive environment. We have not considered operating temperature, but its effect, temperature and ambient effect also I have provided in the theory notes. It is there. With the temperature, what is going to happen with the corrosion, or let us say ambient. Let us say ambient. Both of these, temperature and corrosion all together, ambient conditions. Okay, and non-zero mean stress cases, we have discussed about that. Configuration of stress time pattern, not all configuration, we have discussed about only one particular type configuration. Constant amplitude loading, constant amplitude, variable, etc. we have not discussed it. One part of this we have covered at present. Apart from this, you see, sorry, wait for a minute. Okay, there is some renovation work is going on here in the office today. It may be disturbing, noise is there. Okay, fine. So you make a note here, several other factors, material composition, that means different material, steel, aluminium, copper, and etc. all that are going to give you different answers. So the materials will behave in a different way, but quantifying that apart from experimental way or apart from considering the corresponding values, it is very difficult. Grain size, grain direction, again a critical parameter related to the material, highly dependent on type of heat treatment you do, type of the operation, whether it is machined, whether it is forged, whether it is cast, what way you are going to fabricate that part, that defines the grain size and grain direction. Considering its impact into the stress prediction equation, you realize the complexity. We can go with the equation. What equation we use at present is quite simpler. But if you want to incorporate that also, so we had a Baskin equation, SNF is equal to A NF to the power B, a straightforward equation where the stress you have altered with reference to the corresponding point which are marked with their red color. So this stress value we have obtained after modifying with corresponding parameters. But what if you want to consider other parameters? Welding is kind of complete material state changing process. You have to melt and then resolidify. There is a melt pool. Weld zone fatigue analysis itself is one research area. Only that. Weld zone fatigue analysis. You search for International Journal of Fatigue or Journal of Fracture Mechanics. You are going to identify, you are going to find lot of papers only related to fatigue cases with respect to welding and its failures. Several ships, which are several we have seen, no, even in our first chapter in the history, which have failed. Welding pressure tank failures are all with respect to welding defect and related phenomena. So that itself is one zone which we are not talking in the present topic. Okay, residual stress. We only talked about residual stresses affects the life and how it is affecting that few points I have mentioned. But incorporating the magnitude of the residual stress in obtaining the life, it itself, first of all, residual stress estimation itself is a costlier task. You require XRD with the specified instruments, not all XRD. There are specific measuring devices which are required to calculate the residual stresses. Once you have that residual stresses, then planning that, incorporating that into the equation. Residual stress equation itself is depending on several factors. It is a function of something. And that function you want to incorporate into the your stress life equation. Or nature of fatigue, different type of fatigue. Here only one is mentioned at present, fretting, but there are many. You have seen the classification of fatigue, wear fatigue, then Brinelling fatigue, creep fatigue. When we say various mechanisms of fatigue, then again equations are different. We cannot rely on the same equation. Operating speed we have not considered. Damage accumulation we will look in the next, and the frequency. So within defined time frame, let us say 10 seconds. In 10 seconds, you can have only 2 cycle of loading, or within the same duration, you can have more number of cycle loading. Same fatigue, same duration, 10 seconds. So what is the frequency of applying this load? This is also important factor when we analyze the fatigue life. And moreover, there is one more thing which we are going to address in the coming topic. That is, we have discussed about only constant amplitude load at present. Whether it is completely reversed or not, if it is not completely reversed, we went with the mean stress correction criteria are there. We have used that, Goodman, Gerber, Soderberg, Morrow. There are several criteria, we can use the same. But what if there is variable amplitude loading? Let us say you have few cycles of this magnitude, you have then few cycles of some other magnitude, some other nature, you have some more magnitude, maybe compressive or like this, and then you have again large overload cycles, and then something which is related to the more practical case, multiple different type of loading or variable amplitude loading, VAL, if it is there, then how to analyze. So about VAL, damage accumulation, we will look into the next topic, and this is the last topic into the high cycle fatigue calculation. Okay, some related to this configuration. So what I have talked here is related to configuration of stress or time history pattern. But this also depends on frequency. Frequency we are not counting at present. Okay, so these are all few points which are similarly impacting the fatigue life, how we have talked about other aspects. Okay, considering all is not possible, here the idea is you should have this knowledge, this understanding that now I think you can get how much difficult it is to frame an equation itself. And each case becomes unique, specific, depending on the requirement. Some general applications may not be requiring the in-depth fatigue analysis with grain size, grain direction, and etc. Certain risk-prone area component designs might require that aspect also. Okay, so there are several things how people can alter these, alter in the sense how people can control the grain size, grain direction. That takes you to the heat treatment or several other processes. How residual stresses can be imparted, because we know compressive residual stresses are better only if application is tensile in nature. That it comes with a clause that you have to remember. Okay, then how to impart that, which is going to provide us the required strength. If at all we want to impart, which location to impart, because having it throughout the entire component is not economical. Usually when we do strength enhancement for component as a designer, the interest is to strengthen the zone, the weakest zone, that means stress concentrated zone, or where there is a crack. Strengthen that location by controlling several manufacturing reasons, or in the previous problem itself, you are identifying the location of highest stress or the weakest location prone for the failure. You plan something at that location so that that particular location stress can be, that zone can be further strengthened to take up that load. How can that be made? So these thinkings evolve the design. Okay, so these are few points. Let us look into the damage accumulation and operating configuration of stress time pattern to some extent. So the diagram what I have drawn here for VAL, if the load pattern is varying, let us say the load history, the component which I want to work with is having, let us say 3 cycles of this magnitude load. Okay, so horizontal axis N, vertical axis sigma A. Mandatorily write the axes or else graph has got no meaning. Okay, so life or number of cycles along the x-axis, or I can say time in this particular direction, time. Okay, time and load. Let us say 3 cycles. Then some other load pattern, some let us say 6 cycles. So like this, n number of cycles we can have different load. Then what happens? Say when I apply first 3 cycles, component is freshly prepared, and over that I am applying 3 cycles. Now after applying these 3 cycles, some damage could have occurred in the material. Next 6 cycles you are applying over a component with some damage. This is the idea you have to remember. When you have different type of load patterns to be applied over the same component, only the first load pattern you are applying on the as bound condition component. Then every time you apply a new load, some damage is occurred because of the previous load. That damage could be major, that damage could be minor, or there may not be the damage also. That is different case. But some changes will occur in the material because of the applied load, previous applied load. Okay, so let us say you go to showroom and buy a new car. Initially you feel the condition very smooth, everything is nice up to certain cycles, that or in time frame you want maybe up to 1 year, 2 year, you feel not much problem. And then over and over when you are using it again and again, maybe additional load cycles, different type of load patterns. Sometimes you drive alone, sometimes you drive with load in the vehicle. Okay, so these type of load patterns. Next, after the initial start is done, every time different load patterns are applied with the previous load damage. How much damage is occurred till then. Over that you are applying again and again. Let us see what are the theories are there which we can use to predict such a behavior and to tell when the component might go to fail in such cases. So that is what we are discussing in the coming topic here. And it is told, it is put under the heading cumulative damage. Cumulative damage. We are calculating the damage and then cumulating it for every cycle or every pattern, whichever the convenient way we want, that way we are going to plan. Okay. So the term cumulative damage refers to the fatigue effect of loading events other than constant amplitude load cycles. That means previous case we only talked about one particular type of loading amplitude. Now we are talking about variable amplitude loading. Okay. So direct SN diagram data, whatever you have standard, are developed for only constant amplitude stress pattern. Constant amplitude stress pattern. Multiple amplitude stress pattern, that data is not available. Companies might have in their own component point of view, but in the open domain, you will not get it. It is too tedious job to get the SN diagram for each and every type of loading pattern. Only standard case SN diagrams are there. We have to correlate that. We have to extract that data and adjust that data to our requirement. Okay. Constructing or obtaining SN diagram for each and every case experimentally is too cumbersome as well as economically not viable for all persons. Industries, they perform this activity for their component, their product, but they don't release this data in the open domain because that costs them. And the cost of that experiments, all that they will pass on to the customer altogether. Okay. And that will also help them in assigning warranty for the product. Many companies still say we will give guarantee for 1 year or warranty for so and so thing, because they know by these studies, this work, that component is definitely going to survive this much. You know the reliability. They will plan for that. How much reliability, whether to go with 50% survival, whether to go with 90% survival. So if they design a component to survive for 90% of the time, for 1 year, then they say we will provide you guarantee, unconditional warranty, like that. So these design calculation will yield those things. Okay. So therefore, here when there is a variable amplitude loading and etc. is there, designer needs a theory or hypothesis because experimentally testing is not viable. It is not possible also. Time is also constrained, economic constraints, testing facility constraints, all other aspects will come. Okay. Then some hypothesis can we interpret so that we can use the standard data and then correlate to the corresponding problem. Okay. So fatigue damage theories are developed for this reason, and altogether we will call them as a cumulative damage theories to account for variable type of load patterns what we apply over the component and then correlate with the available data. We have these cumulative damage theories. Okay. The basic postulate of this any cumulative damage theory, the basic idea is every cycle, any amplitude, any nature of the loading, every cycle produces some damage. It could be 0.0000 times some minor 10 to the power minus 9 also, or it could be some significant, some 0.5 type of some significant damage also. Significant or not, some damage when you apply the first cycle, thereon every cycle is going to cause some damage in the component. This is the basic first assumption in the theory, in the basic theory. Okay. Then this fatigue damage will be related to number of cycles of operation at that stress amplitude. You have this much damage for one cycle, then how much damage for 10 cycle of the same load? That is straightforward, easy calculation. There are different rules. Again, linear rule is straightforward. One cycle this much damage, then 10 cycle how much damage? This you can calculate. Okay. But there are non-linear theories also. It is not linear damage. Damage is not happening in a linear way. Therefore, there are other theories that we'll look into later. Okay. Then whatever damage incurred is permanent. Okay. Because see, there are concepts. Certain load cycles are beneficial. Sometimes overload is beneficial. Okay. For example, you have a tensile load applied, and then after 100 cycles, suddenly you have a compressive load cycle. And then again, you continue with the tension. the stress in the component will vary, okay, because of this changed load pattern. And next time after compression, when you load with the tensile, the load pattern, the stress developed will be totally different than the previous case. And in some cases, there is a damage. Let us say there is a small crack, microscopic crack, and you apply some overload cycle or something like that, that there is a chance that that micro crack what is developed may cure by itself, that may be closed. Okay, so there are such discussions, but here with respect to cumulative damage theory, the assumption is that whatever damage is occurring, that damage is permanent, over which you are applying the next load cycle. That is the idea. Okay, then damage at different stress levels gets accumulated. One, you have to just add the damage as the number of cycle increases, and then final damage total value what you get, that should not exceed a defined critical value. You can consider factor of safety also in this equation. Without factor of safety also you can calculate. Okay, so this is the basic theory postulate, how the theory is made up. First thing you have to remember is every cycle causes some damage. Then if the same type of load is applied for some 100 cycle, 1000 or n number of cycle, that damage is going to accumulate one by one. Now in a case where there is different type of load patterns are there, then when you apply that different type of load pattern, every time whatever the damage accumulate is there, it goes on adding or accumulating. Okay, and the damage what is occurred is permanent. We are not expecting, when we use these theories or the equation what we are going to use, there is no provision for curing. Some damage might have got healed by itself because of the material property or because of the applied load pattern. That is possible. But here we assume that no such case is there. Therefore, damage is go on progressively adding up or accumulating. And when that total damage reaches a critical value, then we say that component is failed or it is going to fail and return it from the service. Okay, this is the idea. So based on this, we have several scientists or engineers who have developed their theories. Okay, and as far as your syllabus is there, we will only talk about the linear theory, Palmgren minor hypothesis theory. Okay, and theory on this is problem and numerical and theory, both numerical and theory. Okay, Marco Starkey, mostly we will look into theory or maybe discussion type, justification type. Okay, numerical, let us see, because it might become too difficult for you to solve. Okay, however, this is one of the best non-linear theory. I will look into this linear theory. If possible, if time permits, we will solve some numerical also. If not into this, we will stick to the simple linear, and then Manson double linear rule. So what I have highlighted with color here, it is there. Here again, numerical and theory. Okay, or discussions based type of questions you can expect. Okay, fine. There are others also. These all are non-linear. Okay, so the basic idea or the difference between linear and non-linear is whatever damage is going to occur for every cycle after cycle is not linear in non-linear cases. Okay, in the Palmgren minor hypothesis, we say that every cycle, let us say if you have one cycle, you might get damage value 0.001. Then after 1000 cycle, 1000, let us say I am going for n is equal to 1000. After 1000, that d is 1000 times that value. Every cycle what you have got, that value 1000 times. This is Palmgren theory, straightforward. Non-linear theory is, it is not guaranteed that, let us say first cycle might have caused a damage of d is equal to 0.001, for example, and the next cycle, though the load may be same, identical, the next cycle might have caused a damage D is equal to 0.005 also. Okay, so we never know how much damage is going to occur with every cycle. In fatigue, in reality, damage is not uniform. Okay, sometimes initially there could be more damage, and over the time that damage accumulated could be less with every cycle. So there is a non-linearity, there is no linear variation. This is one thing. The second thing is sequence, load sequence. Load sequence. Okay, the damage occurred. I will show you two cases. Later also we'll discuss about that in detail. So two cases I'll just show you for your reference. Let us say I apply 1, 2, 3 cycles of some magnitude, time and sigma A, 3 cycles of some magnitude, and one more load pattern of some other load magnitude. Okay, the damage, total D in this case, and if I apply the repetitive load first, same number of cycles, same magnitude, okay, repetitive load first, and then the same magnitude load another. In this case, second case, total D, this both are different. That means sequence effect is also important. In what sequence you are applying the load? Okay, so these two cases, one is the non-linearity with the damage occurred with every cycle. Other one is the sequence effect. This cannot be predicted by the linear damage rule or Palmgren-Minor hypothesis. This is very important to remember. Yes?
When is the quiz, sir?
You attend the class. That is not your headache. Okay. You attend the class full time. Okay. Fine. So I was talking about the non-linear and linear theory differences. Okay. These two are the prominent differences. One thing is in practical cases, the damage occurred even though load is constant, the damage occurred is not linear. The second one is the sequence effect. In what sequence you apply load, that is also important. Based on that, the damage accumulated will vary. Okay. So non-linear theories starting from 2 to 6, what is written here, they can predict this effect. They can predict this effect, non-linear theories. Okay. But its formulation is very complex compared to the linear hypothesis or Palmgren-Minor hypothesis. Therefore, most often people rely with the Palmgren-Minor rule. And the second point advantage to note here is the nonlinear theory, the improvement observed by using that and the linear theory is not the significant difference for the effort put in order to solve that, in order to identify that. Okay. These are the reason why Palmgren-Minor hypothesis is mostly used. Okay. So keep this point in mind and let us look into the Palmgren-Minor hypothesis. What does it tell us? Okay. So there are several damage quantification techniques are there. We can plan to crack growth rate point of view. We can go for a total damage point of view. Okay. Usually in these theories, what is shown here, maybe Palmgren-Minor theory and all, we go for life cycle ratio to count the damage. We are not differentiating between how many cycles for crack growth, how many cycles for crack initiation. But such theories are there. The last theory, 7th theory, this Mansion double linear rule. This is actually addition to the first point, Palmgren-Minor hypothesis, to overcome some of the drawback there, or to a little bit modified version of that is the 7th one. Therefore, it is known to be double linear damage rule, Manson rule. Okay, similar. It is a linear rule similar to the first case, but little bit addition is there where we can differentiate between out of the total damage, how many cycles for crack to initiate, how many cycles will go into crack initiation and how much will go to crack propagation. Once crack is initiated, Now, if you get this classification that after this many cycles of this particular load, you get crack is initiated, then if you are working with the riskier environment, you may decide, you may see that crack propagation is not required and you may retire the component from service. Okay, so that idea you will get from the 7th case, or you can go ahead with the crack initiation and maybe 50% of the propagation time, 75% of the propagation time you want to use the component, you can use it. Okay, that design hypothesis it is. So therefore, two ways of representing damage is possible. With every cycle, how much crack is going to extend. That way we can quantify the damage, or we can quantify the damage fraction with respect to cycle ratio. Okay, so first rule now, Palmgren minor hypothesis is with respect to cycle ratio. Okay, and I think we will now address the quiz. There are for the time. Anyways, how much is there? This will look into the next class, linear damage rule. Only this slide will finish. Okay. So fatigue, this damage, what is going to occur in the material is based on several parameters, and we can use different methods or the properties to evaluate that. Two in the previous slide I have shown, either we can go to life fraction or cycle ratio. So I can calculate D is equal to number of cycle applied. This small is number of cycles applied. How much I am going to apply the load divided by, if at all I want to fail that component with that given load, then what is the total number of cycles possible? This is what is cycle ratio, total number of cycles only with that particular magnitude. Okay, let us say I want to apply a load magnitude of 100 MPa. Load magnitude of 100 MPa. If the component has to fail at 100 MPa, then I can apply at least, let us say, 10,000 cycles. 10,000 cycles. Okay. If I apply 100 MPa, component will fail after 10,000 cycles. But in practice, what I will do is, I will not apply 10,000 cycle. I will apply only 5,000 cycles. That is small n. Small n is 5,000 cycles. Okay. Then what is the damage occurred? 5,000 by 10,000. Whatever value you get, this is the damage. So this is what is meant by cycle ratio or life fraction. Total number of cycles required to failure could be more, but we are not applying that much. We are applying some lesser than that. Then I will apply some other load of one more magnitude, which can give you similar life. Okay. So like this, depending on how many type of load pattern you have, go on adding the damage one after the other. This is what is simply linear rule, damage rule. Simple linear damage rule is like this with the cycle ratio. Okay. Then crack length wise, with every cycle, how much crack length is growing, delta A by A critical, initial critical size with the increased critical size. So this we can go for. Fracture mechanics will make use of this concept. Okay, dynamic fracture. Last chapter will make use of this crack length related parameter. Okay, damage fraction, other parameters we can use. These are quite famously used. First points, whatever points are there, famously used theories for the damage prediction. Apart from that, you see, we can say earlier in the first chapter we talked when we want to call as a damage is there. When you want to say there is damage, there are various indicators. It is not complete fracture. Various indicators. When elastic deformation is there, when plastic is there, when material dimension change to something thing, parameter changing. So you take up that. You continuously evaluate the properties of the component or certain parameters and say that there is some damage is occurred. So that way is also fine. Maybe XRD methods, laser methods to detect certain structural changes or microstructural changes like grain changement, dislocation, movement of the defects, whether the point defect, etc., how they are moving. You go on scanning the component at regular basis and determine this. mechanical parameter that change in stress to strain response, hardness variation over the time. For example, polymer, if you keep in sunlight, over the period they deteriorate. You can measure its properties, mechanical stress strain properties, hardness will vary, you can measure that. So these are all the parameters you can use to quantify the damage. Okay, but what we are discussing in our class related topic is related to cycle ratio as far as high cycle fatigue chapter is concerned. Okay, that's all for our today. We'll theory wise we'll end up here, and there is a quiz now. You will get 2 minutes time, 2 questions, 2 minutes time to answer. I will post the link here in the team. Okay, so you can remind your friends who are not here to join. Wait for 1 or 2 minutes. I will generate the link. Okay, link is posted here in the Teams, in the chat box. You can access that link and you can answer. It is 3:27. I'll give 1 minute extra. By 3:30, all must submit. There is no extension of time. Just 2 questions. You have to just to choose. Okay. And in every class, we are going to have the quiz. Okay. Don't ask when is the quiz. I may conduct at the beginning, in between the class, or at the end. That I will decide when to take the quiz. Don't need to remind me. So one person asked today, in between, don't disturb the flow of the discussion. Some points I may even forget, which I wanted to share in the discussion time. Anyways, you are aware about this evaluation plan. Every class we have quiz with 2 questions. During the lecture hour, anytime it might come. Therefore, request that all of you are there in class live session. Okay, time of that question I will decide depending on the complexity. Today it is quite simple, even 1 minute is enough, but I am giving you more time. Another 2 minutes are there, you can utilize, no problem. Can someone confirm, is the link taking responses? Anyone?
Yes, sir, it's live.
Yeah, okay. So after you answer the quiz, we will discuss the results of previous quizzes. If anybody have any doubt or query or anything, okay, then we will wind up today's session. Once you answer the quiz, no need to stay here. Those who want to leave, you can leave. Class time is over. Okay. Only those who want to ask anything about the previous quiz or assignment, they can stay back. Sir,
ರಿಫ್ಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಹಾಕಿದ್ರ
ಎಂತ ರಿಫ್ಲೆಕ್ಷನ್
2 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ ಕ್ವಶನ್ಗೆ
ಇದಾ ಅದೇ ಕೊಟ್ಟೆ ಅಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ
ಯಾವಾಗ
ನೋಡಿ ಈಗ
ಕ್ಲಾಸ್
ಕೊಡ್ತೇನೆ.
ಮಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಕೊಡೋದಲ್ಲ
ಹೌದು ನಂದು ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಆಗ್ಲಿಲ್ಲಲ್ಲ 3:30 ಅಲ್ಲ.
Excuse me, sir.
ಎಸ್ ಡನ್.
Sir, it's not accepting responses only.
ನಾಟ್ okay, just wait. I will give you little bit more time. It is actually time is done. That is why not accepting. Only for today, but not next time. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Yes. Submit now. Quickly submit. No additional time will come. It is just a minute. 30 seconds. Submitted. Time is running. Few seconds. Quickly. Those who are pending. No further extension. Two questions today. It took 5 minutes. No problem. It depending on complexity of the question. Okay. Anyone yet to submit? Okay, I think it's time. Fine. Okay, shall we discuss previous quiz? I think first Anag Dev, you are here?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, first let us look into yours case because you asked in the morning itself. Okay.
Sir, can you tell us the answer for today's quiz now, or that you can tell only next class?
I will look into it. If some students has to submit now, then.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So last class, I will share my screen here.
Sir, can I say something?
Yes, please.
In the last quiz, one question we had to write statement for that answer. So
Yes, correct.
mark not been awarded for that.
Not awarded, huh?
Yeah, I think I may have wrote wrong, or it's not awarded because no tick sign or something.
I have checked individually and I have given marks to all. Let me see. That we'll see. For that only this session. Wait. Yes, Anag, what is your query? Quickly. My screen is visible, no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I just wanted to know.
I think Anag also has the question in the same question, right?
Yeah, I just wanted to know the exact answer.
Yeah, where it is. This one, question 19. If short pinning increases fatigue life, then state the reason why. Correct? That question only, correct? No?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. So here important is the short pinning induces the compressive residual stresses in the surface area. And we know that crack is going to develop from the surface. So the compressive residual stresses what are developing that will not allow the crack to initiate and propagate unless and until that residual stresses exerted whatever are there, they get relaxed over the cyclic load over time period. Okay, so that is the reason compressive residual stresses increases the fatigue life. They are the reason. So you have to write the reason just as short pinning. No need to write short pinning and all because already it is there in the statement. You have just write that compressive residual stress inducement or inducement of compressive residual stress. Those who are written that for all I have given the marks. Okay, that is the answer. Is it done, Dave?
Yes, sir. It's okay.
Yeah, okay. Then one more query. Somebody asked that his answer is not evaluated. What is your name?
Yes, sir. Gaurav.
Gaurav.
Yes, sir.
Gaurav Patil, huh?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Gaurav Yatish, he is another
sir.
person, not him. Gaurav Balaji Patil, yeah. You are talking about the question number 19. See, I have given 0.5.
Oh, okay, okay. Okay,
Okay.
sir. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. Any other queries? Anyone have? Any other doubts in the previous assignment?
No, sir.
Okay, fine, fine. Okay then. Any doubts in today's class or discussion or anything? Okay, if there are no doubts, fine. Harshvardhan, were you able to submit the form, MS form? Harsh. Harshvardhan. He is not here, huh? Yes, okay, okay, fine, fine. Okay then. If there are no other queries, we will end our today's meeting. Thank you all for joining for today's session. Have a nice day.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.